Hello, all you radical earthlings. This is the Show Guys podcast, and we analyze movies, games, books, anime, and all of the above without the fear of gatekeeping.
I'm Logan.
And I'm Derek, and this is the Show Guys. Welcome to the Show Guys. I think it's time for some introductions. Who are you?
I'm Logan.
Perfect. What do you do? Why are we even here?
Well, my friend, it's a long and fascinating story. The roots of the show really start in 2020 during the lockdown days and weeks and months. I was listening to a large number of podcasts and watching videos on YouTube, just kind of make the time pass, things like that. And it really started to get me thinking, life is short. And I would at some point really like to start sharing some kind of medium with the rest of the world and to get my thoughts out on some of my favorite subjects when it comes to pop culture. In particular, I got a lot of inspiration from watching the Toonami Pre-Flight podcast hosted by Jason and Gil, who are two guys who work for Adult Swim and Cartoon Network, and really helped shape my generation's outlook on pop culture. When I originally started thinking of the show, I was originally planning on hosting it by myself and just making it sort of one-man operation. But then I realized that I would need a partner, and I would need someone who is just as passionate about these subjects as I am. So I had to ask one of my dearest friends in the entire world, Mr. Derek, if he would like to be my partner in this endeavor. So I have to ask you, my friend, what did you think when I first came to you with this crazy notion that we do this show?
I remember, okay, so for introductions, I'm Derek, but I remember when you came up to me and you're like, hey, I want to do reviews of different shows and such. And I remember you specifically asking me to be like your editor or to be a creative consultant. And we started going through that and I was like, man, this is actually really good stuff. And then I realized, and we kind of met in the middle with this like whole podcasting thing. And then I realized this could actually be a thing. I like the idea of analyzing different mediums of pop culture. I know a lot of our focus will be on anime, but movies, TV shows, video games, music, whatever we really feel like we want to review. I mean, to be honest, we're just a couple of normal dudes talking about cool things. And when you asked me to be the partner in the big scheme of things, I was like, man, I really want to do something cool and interesting. And I think this was one of those things that we really could take off with and we could really run with it. And if anybody wants to listen, they can. If not, it's not a big deal. We're just might as well record it while we talk about it, right?
Absolutely. And that was another reason why I thought that we would be able to work out as well as we have so far, because for one thing, we don't have to go through an introduction process of getting to know each other. But second of all, and this is really important, we're both just such big, massive consumers of media that trying to come up with a topic or trying to go in depth in a certain subject area really isn't going to be difficult for us. So I think that's really going to be a major part of our longevity.
Yeah, I agree because pop culture is never ending. And like you said, we're such big consumers. We can watch all the TV show in the world. Specifically, you could watch One Piece and still not be caught up if you were to start today for the end of time.
To our listeners, we will be talking about One Piece at some point. Not a lot, but at some point.
Yeah. And the thing is, people want to hear what other people have to say. And this podcast is just a good way to do it. And the whole purpose of this, I think, and you might agree with me, you might disagree, I would like to know your thoughts, is the purpose of this is this is what we think about it, because you and I are both educated individuals, I would say, and we just want to say like, oh, this is why we think something is good. We'll always have disagreement, whatever it is, but some people might find joy in saying like, oh yeah, I agree. I think so and so show is overrated, or I think so and so book is really good, but nobody's ever heard of it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we have on our side going into that is being able to just casually talk about it. And I think that's a huge, huge thing for us.
I agree 100% because, and this is something that I've kind of noticed because I know we're going to talk about podcasts we listen to and different things like that at some point. I will listen to audio dramas all day, every day, but more often than not, they involve one or more cast members going on a kind of back and forth conversation. So I think from that perspective, trying to make things more conversational when we talk about things we like, things we didn't like, I think that's going to really add to the listening experience for any kind of listener, is that you're going to get a couple of different points of view on each subject matter.
Yeah, and I just thought of this. One of my favorite things that we're going to be doing is different genres or different mediums. Like I said earlier, when you think about it, like our listeners could come in and listen to our anime arcs, when we talk about JoJo, Dragon Ball Z, any shonen or different types of animes. If the listener doesn't really mind anime or doesn't really, that's not their interest, they can tune out. And then when we talk about something that they are interested in, such as like when we talk about Tolkien's novels, or if we talk about movies that they're interested, the horror genre, which I'm a big sissy, so I don't partake in. But you know what I mean? Like different genres and different mediums, I think our listeners it's going to be fluid. And I think that's the best thing is people are like, we can tune into this if we like it. If not, we wait till the next episode. And I think that's one thing we have going for us right now.
I agree. I agree. And also, just something I want to say as well is that we live in very fortunate times where we're able to access different things. You know what I mean? Thankfully, we are not going to be bored talking about all the different kinds of stuff that we're going to be talking about.
No, I agree. And here's leading into my next topic of discussion is why, and I'll answer this too, but why are you so passionate about these things? I know we talked about media consumers or being involved in the processes of different shows, books, and movies, but why do you think we're so passionate about it?
I think part of it is because we see what we consume media wise as almost a part of us. So the different things that we enjoy or like to experience, we see it as a part of who we are. And we see it as something that really helps make us who we are and helps make us at least a little bit unique, because it's always just an exhilarating feeling when you find something that is in your niche. You just get that feeling of, okay, this is it. This is for me. I love this.
Yeah,
Your thoughts as well, my friend.
yeah. I mean, you nailed it on the head. It's just the fact of finding something that we're truly passionate about. And I tell that to my students. I'm like, hey, I would rather read something that you're writing that you're passionate about rather than something that you think I would be interested in. Because here's the thing, I would rather see the progression or the development of something you're passionate about rather than reading something completely boring. And I think you and I mean, our main thing is anime. And I think because we're doing this, we're almost normalizing the idea of watching anime, because I think honestly, it gets a bad rap of, oh, you're watching nerd stuff, or, oh my God, you like anime. Like, I think there's a deeper thought process to understanding or reading manga or watching animes. I think each one does a better job telling a story than most live action stuff. That's not to discredit any live action things, but I think one thing that I'm passionate about for this is the fact that we're normalizing the conversation. And I think that's the big thing you said earlier is the conversation of we're trying to analyze different things thematically, and we're not trying to gatekeep. It's not like, oh, we hate this, so you should too. Because I mean, you like things, I don't like things, but it's an understanding of you are allowed to like those things, and I'm allowed to not like those things. So, and I think that's one of the big things that we're doing. And the whole purpose of this is to just do something cool and interesting that people might like. People might not like it. Who cares? It's the conversation. It's just being able to relate to people. And I think that's a big thing. That's one of the things that I'm passionate about, is being here and saying like, hey, we're just normal dudes and we understand, we get it. But I think that's like a huge deal right now, and I
I
think we're
agree.
on to something.
I agree completely, buddy. And obviously, at some point, we're gonna have to have like sub versus dub episode at some point.
Oh
But I
yeah.
think one thing we're also going to be able to talk about is being able to talk about just kind of foreign media in general. That in itself is going to be an interesting thing because if you look at on like Netflix, Amazon, different streaming services, things like that, there's probably a lot of foreign made television or movies that people might be hesitant to watch, either because they're subtitled or because they're just kind of different. So I think us not only looking at animation from different countries, but just films in general, that's going to be a big, big, big thing that we could end up talking about as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think the whole I'm trying not to rant the sub versus dub thing. Like, it doesn't matter. Just
It's
let
all
people
right.
like things. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? We'll have that conversation later. I'm not wanting to have that now, but you
Right.
know what I mean? Like,
Right. Right. Right.
but you're so right. To
Mhm.
analyze something that isn't just one genre or one medium, I think it keeps it fresh. It keeps the
Mhm.
discussion and conversations fresh. And I think it's just something that's fun to talk about. Just analytically, I
Exactly.
love analyzing themes. Being an
Mhm.
English teacher, that's my life.
Exactly.
So, and you
Yeah.
being a
Exactly.
history teacher, it's just we have those analytical parts of our mind that we
Mhm.
love to talk about and discuss. And
And
I think,
and yeah, and what's fascinating also is that with those being our different subject matters is that we've already have kind of done that in a couple of different ways because we one of the things we've talked about before is whenever we talk about say an author or a work that we both are really enjoying is that I have noticed that you being the English instructor is that you are really good when it comes to the analysis, and me being a historian and history instructor is that I am also good at trying to delve into the background of what makes this author write this certain work. So I think when we combine those different elements, it's going to come out for some really interesting topics of conversation in the future.
oh, and our perspectives will be completely different. Not maybe not different. They'll be almost influenced a little differently. Like, say, man, I don't even know of an example right off the top of my head, but just our background. Like you said, you'll go for the more historical background side, and I'll go more for the what does that mean almost. That's not saying that you won't have those thoughts too, and I won't have the background data too. It's just the way that our minds are kind of working. It's interesting.
Hmm. I agree, my friend. I agree.
To talk about what we're doing with this, though, to be more detailed to our listeners, because I
Right.
figured we went on a tangent of just different things.
Sure.
Um, so to and correct me if I'm wrong when we talk about this. The
Yeah.
basic things that we're going to be discussing, we talked about theme a lot and perspectives,
Hmm.
but I think more so we're going art style, plot structures. I know that's a very, very syntax way of saying things, but
Hmm.
the stories I think is the main things that we'll
Hmm.
focus on, is the writing of these medias and really the content itself, rather than do we think it's good or do we think it's bad, because
I
everything
agree.
does something really well, but some
Hmm.
things we might sit there and say, I mean, I didn't necessarily like that style choice, but
Hmm.
we respect it for what it is. And I think that's
I
the big
agree.
thing that we need to make sure to always be saying for our listeners, is saying, hey, you might appreciate the artwork of said show or the way that the pacing is in some movie or whatever. So we need to just respect that fact that people can like it. And that's what we're doing, is just analyzing that in terms of just from a normal perspective.
I agree 100%. And this is something that I've given a great deal of thought to whenever we do our episode or episodes on Star Wars, is that gentleman on YouTube compiled all the different episodes of this audio drama that NPR came out with in about 1980-ish, 82-ish, something like that. So NPR came out with this audio drama version of the original trilogy. It came out in like